The safeguarding of children in the Nigerian boarding and day school system is a matter that has been under close scrutiny recently. The deaths of Sylvester Oromoni here in Lagos and Hanifa Abubakar in Kano are recent examples of how gaps in protecting children can be fatal. Both of those cases remain under investigation. But another harrowing issue has been making the rounds on social media. A former student at Olashore International School, Obiamaka Azubike, has accused the institution in Osun State of covering up alleged sexual assault, which she says took place in 2004 when she was 16 years old. She says she was sexually assaulted by 13 boys and was punished by the school for her own violation. My colleague and our rights correspondent, Adefemi Akisoya, has been following the story and lays out our findings in this report. Before the report is played, we must warn viewers of its graphic content and advise viewers' discretion.
Obiamaka Azubike, pictured here with her twin sister Chiamaka, was a good student. She was a pupil at the prestigious Olashore International School, a fee-paying co-educational boarding school in Osun State, southwest Nigeria. Both Obiamaka and Chiamaka were prefects, trusted with representing the school in a positive way. For all intents and purposes, they were proud of their school. But that all changed in the aftermath of the 1st of May 2004. It was around 8 in the evening. Obiamaka, with a few schoolmates, went to watch a debate taking place at the school hall. The map shows the route. She arrived at this hall for a public speaking event, but soon after, an announcement was made. Senior Secondary 3 students could not attend the debate. The 3 girls left the hall and started making their way to the senior girls' hostel, here, where they planned to study for their approaching exams. Suddenly, terror struck. Obiamaka shared her story with me during a recorded phone call.
You know, like when you feel the hair on your body stand up, like something is about to happen. I just hear Sake in my ear say, Obiamaka, run. So she jumped across the gutter, and this was like a split second. My quickest getaway is to go right. So in stepping down the pavement, one of the boys stuck his leg out, and I fell. So I fell from the pavement to the asphalt on the road, and I was on the floor. So before I could even move, all the boys pounced on me as I was on the floor there. So they started with their hands on my houseware. Then the way our houseware was, it had like a collar and then a V-neck, and then it was like a dress, like up to your knees. And then I felt my dress going up, and then people like pulling my underwear aside, and then their hands in my vagina, their hands in my bra, and I was screaming, and these idiots were laughing.
Obiamaka was able to run to then Principal Dr. David Burgess's office, found here on the map.
I just kept running till I got into the principal's compound, until I got to the door, and I just kept banging on the door with my 2 hands. They took me to the clinics, and I remember Nosha, they wearing her gloves and telling me to take off my underwear and put my legs up, so she looked first at the lips of my vagina, and then, put her hand and then she said, oh, there's vaginal trauma, and she went outside. Mrs. Burgess was on the corridor there, and Dr. Burgess was in the main place, and she spoke to them. They asked Mrs. Badmos, my head of house, to come and get me.
2 days later, on May 3rd, 2004, after speaking to school authorities about the incident, Obiamaka was confronted by a pupil who thought wrongfully that he had been named as one of the suspected attackers.
When I was done writing the statements, my facts hadn't changed. Nothing had changed. I then asked to see the principal. She now goes, oh yeah, you can see him now. So I went in as if he was outside. I said, sir, have you called my parents? He said they're working on it. They're still working on it. I said, okay. I told Asibi, let's go, and then we left. Only for us to get to the front of Yellow House, and I just saw Timmy Fally running towards me in anger. And he was like, you stupid, why did you mention my name? And before I could get mentioned out, he struck a blow to my eyes. And my friend Asibi is quite small, so she stepped forward to defend me. That's how, if you see the way she was flung into the gutter. And The gutter around that yellow house side was so deep, she still had scars, oh God. Then that's how he started to kick and punch me. Then all the other boys, some jumped from the balcony, ran out of the hostel, started kicking and punching me.
Obiamaka says she was sexually assaulted by 13 boys. She only named 7, and I've asked her why.
The reason why I didn't name the others is in secondary school especially, and especially with boys, there are the alphas and there are the betas. And a lot of time, because of the power dynamics, the alphas are able to influence the Bs to do things that I don't think ordinarily they will do. And that is the only reason why I've not named the other 5, the other 6, sorry. And one of those 6, in fact, only one of those boys has apologized to me.
Of the 7 boys who are now men Obiamaka has named, none have made a public statement or formal response to her claims. None of those I've reached out to have responded to my attempts to contact them. The current principal of the school, John Toscano, did reply to my request for information in his email dated January 26, 2022, though he denied my request for copies of Obiamaka's statements from 2004 and the school's official position on the matter. He did confirm an independent panel had been set up to investigate the allegations Obiamaka has made.
There's no transparency. No, these are the people that are going to be questioned. You can't do like that. My abuse was public. The cover-up was public. You have to be public about whatever inquiry that you're doing.
It's believed the panel has started its investigation, but it's unclear what powers they have and what process they are using. In the meantime, Obiamaka's online petition to pressure Olasore into addressing the alleged cover-up of her sexual assault has received more than 2,800 signatures.
So I've been very clear to the school on what I want. I want them to do the right thing they should have done the first time. I want a full apology. I want the school to be as loud with their apology as they were with my humiliation. Because they humiliated me. They humiliated the girl that went to call for help. That was with me when it happened. They humiliated our families. They stripped me of prefectship because they trumped up an offense and said, oh, I was walking on the road that I shouldn't have been walking on. And I was like, hold on, which road? Is it the same road I was walking on earlier in the day to take parents around the school that you are telling me is forbidden because you had boys that behaved like complete animals and you were protecting them? And you gave me the same punishment as this individual, so that you even punished me in the first place after undergoing all that abuse is an atrocity. That those boys were not handed over to the police, especially the head boy who was over 18 at the time, is an atrocity. They covered up a crime. So they need to be as loud in their punishment and, put it back on the record that I was a prefect and my sister was a prefect, because they removed, the record of my sister being a prefect because she was like, I didn't like how you people treated my sister, and she made it very clear to Dr. Burgess. They told me, actually, I can't attend my graduation ceremony, but my mother was like, Zinayo, that we're both going to go and we're going to walk out where they called Chiamaka to get her awards, and both of us walked out. So they need to do like a proper ceremony because it's honors that we earned.
At the crux of this story is a now 34-year-old woman fiercely trying to get justice for her 16-year-old self, sister, and friend. A battle she says she will wage to the finish. Adefemi Akinsanya, Arise News.
Okay, joining us now for an expansion of the story is Obiamaka Azubike. You're welcome to the program, Obiamaka. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Good morning. Good to have you. Good to have you. We do sympathize with you, but as you know, these are grave allegations, and we'll also like to inform you, as we read out, and to the public, that we expect that representatives of the Olashore International School will join us later in the program for their own side of the story, if just for you to appreciate that. But let's deal with this. It's almost 18 years after this sad occurrence. And as I said, they are weighty allegations. Tell us, why did you wait till this time? And why did you have to use the social media petition to revisit this issue? I know that it is said that time heals all wounds, but maybe not all wounds sometimes. I know how these things can be. It is your truth, but then it is something that the school will have to react to. How have you dealt with it? How have you coped with it? And why did you wait for 18 good years almost to come out public to speak about what happened in 2004?
First of all, are you able to hear me?
We can hear you clearly.
Go ahead.
Clearly.
Okay, awesome. So first of all, let me start by saying thank you to both you, Steve and Femi, for having me on your show to talk about such a serious issue that affects quite a significant population demographic within our country. I have an economics background, so I'd like to start with numbers before we delve into any further discussion. So currently, the Nigerian population is estimated at 214 million. And about half of this population is under the age of 19, which is about 107 million. 49% of this number is estimated to be females. And according to WARIF, 1 in 4 females under the age of 18 is expected to experience some form of gender-based sexual violence. That number is estimated to be 13.1 million based on our current population, and that number is unacceptable. Now, I stand before you here calm and collected, but what you're not able to see is the PTSD, the trauma that I have had to deal with for the last 17 going on 18 years, every time I am triggered. Now, going through the experiences that I have gone through, understandably, there will be a lot of triggers. Literally no day goes by without us hearing in Nigeria of some rape or sexual assault case. And in those instances, as a survivor, given your experience, more often than not, you will relive what you went through every time you hear those stories. There are some times you're able to put it behind you and it wouldn't make a dent in your day, but other times, and you're not able to pick and choose when, you have meltdowns. Now, crucial to my stability has been a loving, supportive family structure and a supportive network of friends and loved ones. That said, everyone does not have the support structures, and we need to be aware of that. Now, coming back to your question on why it's taking me 18 years, or almost 18 years, before I answer, I'd like to start by saying that, you know, it's not for public consumption why it takes survivors so long to come forward. Bear in mind, now moving to my personal experience, bear in mind the humiliation and degradation that I had to go through when I came forward the first time. Bear in mind that I was only 16. Also, bear in mind that my father, my parents, tried all kinds of measures, wrote all sorts of letters to the principal, to Olashore himself, who was alive at the time, to understand what had happened to me. Until date, the only response my dad got was a form of no response from Olashore while he was still alive, saying he would not want to hear further on this matter. Now, as an adult, this is something I have had to deal with. So the PTSD, the dissociative personality disorder, the nightmares. And at some point, I contemplated suicide and used to self-harm. This is not something that anybody should have to go through. And I've heard words like, oh, you're brave, you're strong. I wish I didn't have to be brave. I wish I didn't have to be strong. I wish that experience would not be used to classify how strong I am. I would rather not have had that experience.
Understood. Understood. Thank you very much for, first of all, agreeing to speak to us. We can only imagine what you're going through. Obiamaka, I want to perhaps get a bit more clarity. Your issue now is with your former secondary school and how you believe they've handled what you say happened to you when you were 16 years old. Over the course of these nearly 18 years, can you first tell me what moves the school has made? I know you just touched on the fact that your father tried relentlessly for years to get adequate responses from the school, and that never happened. But if you can give us some insight into currently what the status of this disagreement is between yourself and Olashore School is, and further, when it comes to the people you have accused of this assault, again, over the course of the 18 years, have you had any contact with them since the alleged incident? Have they tried to speak to you? Have there been any apologies, any threats made? What has your relationship been like on both sides, both with your former school and your former classmates who you say assaulted you in this way?
So I'll start with the school. So the school is basically mirroring their behavior from 18 years ago. So, and I would divide this into three. So first of all, there is a lack of transparency. There is an unwillingness to communicate. And there is, and this is followed up with the creation of alternative facts that suits their narrative. Now, how that applies
Sorry to interrupt you, Obiamaka, but give us an example of an alternative fact that you accuse them of saying.
So when I first came out with my statement on social media, and after I had written to the school to highlight what had happened to me, the miscarriage of justice that occurred, on the 6th of December, I got an email from John Toscano, and it was a really badly worded email because it was like a copy and paste of an external memo they'd released on social media, and they just slapped that on an email with a dear madam. And the content of that email revealed that they were going to do an internal investigation. And they sent that email to me. Now, within 24 hours of me receiving that email, I was able to get my hands on a letter sent by somebody that has links to the institution, a letter-headed letter, like a signed letter-headed letter that they'd released to one of the ex-students in my sets. And that same individual was one of the boys who not only sexually assaulted me, but physically assaulted me and continued to harass me after we had left school. Now, the content of that letter stated that the school had concluded a thorough investigation, and as a result of that thorough investigation, they did not find that said individual named in my sexual assault or my physical assaults. Now, how can they have done a thorough investigation when till date the school has refused to release copies of my original statement on the incident? They have refused to release the original report from the nurse. There are a lot of documents related to what has happened that they haven't released to me or my lawyer, despite requesting this. So on what basis was that letter released to that ex-student if I was told at the same time that a thorough investigation was being instituted or was being conducted? Then going on to your next question, because I think you asked what the school response has been in all of this since I contacted them and what my actual grouse is with the school. Now, my main issue with the school was the cover-up of the sexual assault and, the physical assault that happened after, and also the punitive measures taken towards me and the lady that was with me at the time of the incident. Now, since I first contacted Olashere, I contacted them on the 4th of December, and I just previously mentioned to you that they released the reply to me on the 6th of December. I was waiting for some form of communication from them, and that didn't happen. Between the 6th of December and the 20th of December, I was contacted by the board of alumni for Olashere International School. And within those 2 weeks, I agreed to do, and I don't want to call it an interview because it felt like more of an interrogation to go through the facts. And I did that. And my sister was also on the call to also narrate her own experience, because even though both of us were in the eye of this situation, we experienced things slightly differently. And after the alumni, we had the session with the alumni on the 14th. The expectation afterwards was to receive a follow-up of next steps and actions, and what the alumni was going to do next, and how they were going to respond to the school. Till date, that hasn't happened. I then sent a follow-up comms to the school on the 20th of December to understand where they were with the investigation and when they were going to be ready to contact me. I didn't hear back from the school till Tuesday this week, when the principal, John Toscano, sent me an email with 2 press releases. So one was notification of the independent panel being commissioned, and the second one was around the fact that they've had to constitute this panel because they haven't been able to truly investigate the case internally. And they alluded that my use of social media has made it difficult for them to look at the case properly. And I didn't understand what that point was on. Now, my main bone of contention is if the OIS, so Olashere International School Association, who are also the proprietors / owners of the school, undertook the process of putting together this panel. Now, in this particular dispute, there are 2 people involved. So I am the complainant, and the school is at the center of this complaint. There seems to be a conflict of interest that the institution that is being complained against is fully in charge of this process of creating a panel to investigate the incidents. Now, I'm in no way speaking to the integrity of the members of the panel selected, because I'm very sure of their professionalism. But at the same time, there needs to be some fairness and a sort of balance in the process of putting together this independent panel. Now, the second issue that I'm having, as I've said before, is I've asked for documentation around the incident. So written documentation that I supplied, a statement of facts from the nurse that was involved, the principal's own statement, because I expect he would have been asked to write a statement on the events that occurred. Now, none of this has been shared. And it's kind of a concern to me as to what will be deliberated on the panel. How will secondhand hearsay be differentiated from first-hand accounts? What exactly is the panel actually meant to deliberate on? Because one of the things that I am aware of is there has been an abundance of hearsay regarding this particular incidents. I think when you look at the facts and when you look at the issues that I have highlighted, I don't think that there is any individual that will not be able or will not easily recognize the conflict of interest that has arisen in this matter based on the school's decision to fully own the process of creating a panel. Now, there's also a concern. So the school seems really shy to communicate with me. And I don't understand why there is that shyness to communicate with me, the complainant, or my family, or my legal representation in this matter, because the facts are the facts.
Okay, Obiamaka, we'll still come back to you. We've got at least one more question to ask you, but before then, we'll go on a quick short break. So when we return, we'll still be back with you. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. We're still joined by Obiamaka Azubike, who is a sexual assault survivor, and she's been here talking to us about her experience of childhood sexual assault at her school, her secondary school being Olashore International School. Before we went on break there, Obiamaka, Steve did want to ask you a question, so I will hand over to him so he can ask that, and I'm hoping that I can ask you one after that too. Go ahead.
Thank you, Femi, and thanks for staying with us, Obiamaka, and for sharing your truth with us. I wanted to ask you, and I'll proceed with that. You've questioned the manner in which the school has been engaging with you, and the fact that it looks like the panel that they have set up may not be fair to you. And my question is, what will you want, and how will you want to proceed with what has happened in terms of litigation? Are you planning to sue if the final report of the panel is not satisfactory to you? I ask this question because I'm aware that one of the former students that is on your list, so to speak, has also gotten his lawyers ready just in case that his name is mentioned, because basically the lawyers are saying that he was never part of any assault, he was never part of anything, and that you will need to prove that the fellow was part of it. So I ask again, how much can this play out in terms of litigation, and are you planning to seek justice by the way of the law court?
So from a legal perspective, I'm not required to answer that question, but it is important to highlight that my issue with the panel is the process by which it was set up. As I also said earlier, I'm not questioning the integrity of the members of the panel. My issue is with the process, because the key institution, so Olashore International School is at the center of the cover-up of my sexual and physical assault. And as such, they cannot be fully responsible for the process of selecting members of the panel via the association, which are also the owners of the school. Now, to ensure that the findings of the panel can be considered truly independent, there needs to be, we need to come to an agreement for both I and the school, who are the two parties involved, to have equal representation in terms of members of the panel. The other issue that I had already previously highlighted is we need to be able to differentiate clearly between first-hand accounts versus second-hand versions of events. Now, coming back to one of the topics that you've raised about that particular individual, the school needs to release my original statements. and this is my request, and this has constantly been my request. And that individual, same individual you have alluded to, was mentioned in my original statements. That same individual harassed me with an intent to cause physical harm at my friend's house in 2012. And his exact words when he saw me was like, Azubike, so you still don't have respect after being dealt with. Now, I'm not going to go into further deliberations on what the actions of my legal team will be, because that is not what we're here to discuss. But I hope I've been able to answer your question in a manner that is satisfactory.
Very well, very well. That's fine. But just like we said earlier, the representative of Olashore International School will also be here to speak to the allegations that you have raised, so that the public can be better informed about what happened.
Sorry to interrupt you there, Steve. Yeah. They are actually here already. And just before we let you go, Amaka, very quickly, let us just have a very brief view on what it is you want, what justice looks like for you before we let you go and begin the conversation with Olashore.
So Olashore is very clear on what justice looks like for me and my 4 requests, but I've included an additional ask now. So the first thing that I asked for was for their apology to be as loud as their humiliation. So they need to apologize to me for covering up the sexual assault and creating an environment that allowed me continue to be physically assaulted, and for the punishment that I was giving. So I and the girl that was punished along with me. So I asked that a public apology be written both in print and online to my friend, myself, and our families. Now, my second request was for the school to reinstate the fact that both I and my twin sister, Chiamaka Azubike, were prefects of the school. My third ask was for the school to do a graduation ceremony for both I and my sister via Zoom, because they removed the possibility for us to be able to effectively have our honors rewarded at graduation. My fourth ask was because of some of the communication that I'd seen from people that had previously taught within the school or being custodians of students. And that was around ensuring that every individual that has to interact with students on a campus goes through sexual awareness training. They have to go through sexual awareness training, and there needs to be an active sexual violence escalation structure. So in my case, the expectation when the incident happened was, after I made my statements to the principal, after they had done the medical exam, the police should have been contacted and my parents should have been contacted, but that didn't happen. What is the incident structure that the school has in place today? And if the school doesn't have one in place, there should be one. And this isn't just for Olashore, there should be one in all the schools across the country. And this is where, there's a role for everyone to play to ensure that this doesn't happen again in our institutions. There is the role of government. There is no reason why in 2022, we do not have the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act live in every Nigerian state. That is unacceptable, given the endemic situation of sexual violence in our country. And our lawmakers need to prioritize that across states and across federal levels. It needs to be a federal act as well. Now, the second point of call is our educational institutions putting profit over their duty of care. Their first responsibility is to ensure and safeguard the lives and the well-being of students within their care, not making profits. There needs to be some legislation that ensures that schools are held accountable when this kind of issues happen. We have had enough tragic occurrences, and quite frankly, I don't want to see this ever happen again, or any form of this situation where you have students incurring lifelong damage or dying. It is
Understood.
Unacceptable. And as Nigerians, we should be enraged.
Right.
Now, there is the duty of parents in such situations.
Obiamaka,
now,
it pains me to have to interrupt you here, but unfortunately, we have run out of time. We would implore you, though, to stay on and listen in on the next part of our programming when we cross over and speak to representatives of the Alumni Association at Olashore International School. And we hope to be able to speak to you again in peace. Thank you very much for joining us on this show.
Thank you for having me.